phrase. It clearly isn't an objective look at what he has done, both during the campaign, the transition, and now. There's constantly this sense that or skepticism, which there should be a healthy skepticism, but I think when you look at the president's record, both as a candidate during his transition and now his first week in office, you recognize that he has succeeded time and time and time again. And frankly, the default should be, what can't he do, not will he do.
But opposition party is a very strong phrase. Now, you're entitled to push back against unfair coverage. Some of the coverage has been unfair, but this seems to go farther and almost define the media as the enemy.
Well, I think in many cases there are stories and journalists who start off with a negative disposition on how they're going to cover the president and his actions.
So, okay, now you yourself, in this briefing room last weekend, made a pretty forceful statement to reporters that the media are vowing to hold President Trump accountable. You're going to hold the media accountable against what you called irresponsible behavior. It's been reported that President Trump perhaps strongly encouraged you to deliver those remarks.
I don't divulge private conversations I have with the president.
I asked the question carefully.
I know you did, and I appreciate that effort.
All right, you've taken a lot of heat.
I have.
Personally, for your handling of the president's claim. It's, about he believes up to 5 million people voted illegally in this election. There is no evidence of that so far, as many news organizations reported, but you kept saying, well, that's what he believes.
That's what he believes. And
you didn't want to embrace it yourself.
But that's not my job. Okay, my job is to speak on behalf of the president. When I asked the president about this issue, he said, that's what I believe and that's what I want you to tell folks. My job is to be his spokesperson and to articulate his vision, his ideas, his successes, and in this case, what he believes.
If the president points to a Pew study, you pointed to it as well, as buttressing the case that there was a lot of illegal voting, and the author of the study says...
That's one example.
Okay, and if the author of the study tells journalists, no, we didn't say that, we're talking about registration rolls, isn't it fair for journalists to point that out?
Sure, it's fair to point that out. But I think that's why the president's asked for, talked about the need for an executive order that will look into this. We've got millions of people registered twice, voting, dead people voting. I think it's, when you look at the integrity of our voting system, the question should be, why aren't we doing this? This is our right to vote. One man, one vote, one person, one vote is something, it's the bedrock of our democracy. It's what our country is built on. So the idea that we wouldn't take this seriously is something that should be asked. I mean, the president showing the leadership on this and making sure that when someone goes out to vote and they wait in a line, that they know that that vote not only counts, but it's equal to the person that's behind them and in front of them, is something that should be something that's applauded.
Sean, front page headline in the New York Times, Trump repeats election lie. Washington Post front page story, Trump's disregard for the truth threatens his ability to govern. Fair or unfair?
Well, again, that goes back to your first question about opposition party. I think it's one thing to state an opinion or to state, hey, here's what he said and here's what the facts show or here's what some studies show. But when they come out and say he lied and they have no evidence that certain things don't exist. For example, the president went and said the other day, and I said it as well, that we had the largest audience. When you start combining the ratings, the people watched it live television, the YouTube views that were seen, the people who watched it live stream on Twitter and other places, those are the numbers that I can put out that show that it was the largest audience. And so far, I haven't had anybody, not one person, come back to me with numbers to refute that. That any prior, and if you think of it, someone in the briefing room threw out Ronald Reagan, and the last time I checked, 1984 and 88, or 80 and 84, right, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have the internet.
So a headline that says lie, in your view, is acting like an opposition party?
Absolutely.
Is that fair?
But here's the thing that's interesting about the way the media operates. When they make a mistake, they write a correction at the bottom and just call it a correction. When the administration has a difference of opinion with someone in the media, they call it a lie.
Or makes a mistake.
They sort of scrutinize every single point, which is fair. We have a free press, and I'm not saying they shouldn't.
Right.
But it's interesting how it's a very one-way street.
On a personal level, when some journalists write, some critics write, that this first week has tarnished your credibility, does that bother you?
No. I believe what I believe. I know that I have the confidence of the president. I feel very good when I go to sleep at night, that I'm fighting for an agenda that he's laid out, that's making the country better, that's lifting families up, that's making this country safer. I believe in his agenda. I believe in what he's trying to do. And as long as I know that when I walk out, I'm articulating his agenda and his success to the best of my ability, then I can sleep pretty well.
Now, some in the press have been ripping this president over the dust-up this week with Mexico.
Right.
And, he said the U.S. will begin to pay for this wall. He believes Mexico will reimburse. You explained about import tax that might cover something. You said that was one idea, and I know the two presidents spoke on Friday.
They did. The interesting thing was that conversation was supposed to be 10 minutes long. It went, I think, just shy of an hour.
Right, but after the meeting was canceled, just to finish the question, the Wall Street Journal editorial page said in an editorial titled, "Trump's Little Mexican War," that this was amateur hour.
Well, we'll see. I think they, in a couple of years from now, when our trade deficit is down, when our immigration system is fixed, when our border is secure, they might want to revise that. But I think the president's made it very clear, both on the economic front and on the national security front, that he's going to take swift action. And that's going to be to the benefit of every American taxpayer, and frankly to every American in terms of safety. Because it's not just Mexicans coming in through the southern border. It's a lot of people using that porous border to come through Mexico. It can potentially cause us harm, but there's also a massive economic impact, right? The cost that we're having to spend on immigration because the border is porous, but also the flood of goods and services that are coming in from our Mexican border. We've got a $50 billion a year trade deficit with Mexico. That's a huge, and that's a huge amount that is currently favoring them, not us. So if we can put the American worker back first and foremost, that helps our economy and our job creation as well.
Now, in the past, Donald Trump has criticized Fox News. He's done it in interviews with me. Right now, he seems to like Fox. He tweeted congratulations to Fox for having the highest ratings on Inauguration Day, but he also took a shot at what he called fake news CNN. Why does he keep taking these repeated shots at CNN?
Well, because I think that when you look at the week that he's had, it's frankly, it is historic. I mean, there's some folks that actually have taken the time to give him credit in terms of how much he's done by executive action, how many meetings you talk about the people that he's brought together.
So you feel some in the media have acknowledged the
but I would say it's definitely a minority. And again, when I ask some reporters privately, what do you think of the week that we've had so far? The number of people that we've met with, the groups that we've had. He sat down with union leaders, he sat down with business owners, car manufacturers, and by and large, when you meet with these individuals and you ask them, so how many times were you here in 8 years in the Obama administration? In many cases, they say never.
But you said that when you ask some reporters privately,
they'll admit, and they'll say, wow, you guys really have had packed full days. Every day you're doing stuff.
Why is that not reflected in the coverage?
That's exactly
in your
the point.
view?
That's the point, is that you look at the coverage and what happens, and it doesn't get reflected at all. They're looking for every way to nitpick whether or not a word was pronounced right or whether or not something was spelled correctly, but they're not looking at the successes. And I think that's why, to some degree, the approval rating of the media is so low, is because the American people are turning on the news and they're not finding out things that are going to impact their lives, which is what I think they turn into the news, but are looking for little petty ideas.
Let the record show you have not mispronounced any word so far.
Thank you.
And joining me now, Aaron McPike, political commentator and a former reporter for Real Clear Politics. So we just heard Sean Spicer, who's obviously on the hot seat, say that some reporters have told him privately that the administration is off to a good start this week, but he doesn't feel it's reflected in the coverage. He talked about nitpicking. What did you make of that?
Yeah, well, I also thought he had a really good moment in his Monday briefing when he said, look, it is frustrating and demoralizing to turn on the TV and see all of this negative coverage. He wasn't spinning. That was actually a pretty good moment for why they are going down this road of trying to bring in claims about crowd size and voter fraud, that they're going to fight back when they are frustrated.
I just caught this on the new website Axios this morning. Jim Vandehei and Mike Allen saying that read the weekend papers, look at cable. Trump's debut was pretty much a debacle, but actually it was a remarkably productive start. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between, but why the gap between the coverage? And Spicer says reporters privately, at least some of them, say it's off at least a fast start.
Yeah, well, I think we have seen through the course of this past week, the coverage has gotten better throughout the week. I thought,
better or more positive to the White House?
Well, I think both. I think Monday and Tuesday, it was all very petty and very much about the media. And Americans don't want to read about what the media thinks is wrong. I think it got much better with, I saw what you talked about with Axios. They said it was a dizzying first week. Right. New York Times said it was a dizzying first week. So I think the coverage improved. Right.
Well, the coverage has probably been too much about the media. At the same time, when President Trump attacks the media, of course, that's going to generate a lot of press. All right, stick here and remember to let us know what you think. Media Buzz at foxnews.com on the program of the media. We'll have more of my interview with Sean Spicer a little bit later in the program. When we come back, our panel weighs in on whether some media outlets should be calling this president a liar. President Trump did his first two television interviews this week, one with Fox's Sean Hannity and the other with ABC's David Muir, who pressed him about his unproven claim that up to 5 million people voted illegally in this election, and a study the president has cited.
What you have presented so far has been debunked. It's been called false.
Take a look at the Pew reports.
I called the author of the Pew report last night, and he told me that they found no evidence of voter
Then
fraud.
why did he write the report?
I guess
According to Pew report, then he's groveling again. You know, I always talk about the reporters that grovel when they want to write something that you want to hear, but not necessarily millions of people want to hear or have to hear.
Joining us now to analyze the coverage of the president's first week, Guy Benson, political editor of Town Hall and a Fox News contributor, and Julie Roginski, a co-host of Outnumbered. So let's talk about the word lie on this whole legal voting flap. As I mentioned, the Sean Spicer guy, New York Times front page headline, Trump repeats election lie. Is that fair or unfair under the circumstances?
I have personally been using unsubstantiated claim because there